Hey guys, in this video, I am going to walk you through in detail the 3 strategies we use to help baseball and softball players like way out hit their weight class, especially if they're undersized or they're unathletic and just hit for a whole lot more power than anyone thought they would ever be capable of. And it works very, very well, and we've done it over and over again. One of the first examples, I have 5 kids myself, but my daughter is only 5 foot tall. You're going to see here and she is able, when she's 12, to be able, this is her at 12, to be able to jack balls out of the field to the opposite field. This is her first home run of her life. And using these 3 secrets that we are going to talk about today. And then her older brother, he's not undersized, but he very much was the kind of unathletic clodhopper, Clydesdale, not a greyhound kind of a guy. And here he is as a 15-year-old freshman. This is a field at Bishop Kelly High School in Boise, Idaho. This light pole, if you were to go like Google Maps that field, it takes him at least 390 feet to hit it out of the ballpark right there. So he's hitting the ball almost 400 feet as a freshman using the 3 strategies that we're going to talk about in depth today. So this is all rotational athletics stuff. So it totally works for the throwing as well. My daughter just won a national competition for the hardest throwing softball player in the country at the age of 14. So I know I showed you that clip earlier when she was 12. That was her first home run. But if we slow this down, at 14, she threw this ball 70 miles an hour. She's actually gone on to throw 172, but has incredible arm strength because of the exact same stuff that we're going to be talking about today. And her older brother was a slightly below average thrower when he was like 11 years old. We've been on this same stuff. And here he is. You're going to see him with a slight little shuffle. He's going to pop 190 miles an hour. So rotational athletes, if you're wanting to rotate and be more explosive, like the stuff we're going to share today, is absolutely what will help you. Okay, so let's break this down with how we train these athletes to do this. And full disclosure here, we do have online programs where we walk you through and we create training programs to help your athlete become a better rotational athlete as well. If after I explain how we do all this for you, if you would like us to do that for you, like, you can message me and we can do that at the end. I'm not going to give you any pricing. There's no like, oh, hey, buy this here. Just going to lay out what we do for you. And if this is the kind of stuff you're into and you want to work with me more, then you can reach out. But I like to start with our goal is we want to develop hitters that people are absolutely like afraid that are going to come to the plate when you are facing them, right? And it comes into 3 areas. And these 3 areas these are things that get in the way. So the first thing that prevents hitters from being feared is they're undersized, or they have bad habits, like bad mechanical habits that are hard for them to change. They're like not able to make those changes, or they're just unathletic. So they might be big, but they lack the quick twitch. They lack the explosiveness that some of the other athletes that they are playing with have. And so if we want to build a feared hitter, these 3 things are in our way, and we really need to create training programs and be strategic about how to overcome all these areas. And so we have a very step-by-step process for how to do that. So if we're going to just talk about the part where we're undersized, what I like to recommend people do is I like to recommend that there's a lot of different, there are a lot of different hitting styles out there. There's no stride, there's toe tap, there's a lot of different styles out there. But the one thing I encourage people to do is I encourage you to go look at how little boppers hit. So little boppers are people who are under 6 foot tall, like Jose Altuve here, who only comes up to the chest of whoever he's standing next to. He's 5'6", yet he hits 25 or more home runs every year in the big leagues. And there's like a handful of these guys, Justin Pedroia. There's lots of these different guys, and what they do is they do some things very differently than big hitters do. So they have to move their bodies super efficiently compared to an Aaron Judge, or compared to a Albert Pujols, or any of these. And the same thing goes for the ladies too. If you're not, the Samoan body type, a freak strong type of a athlete, you need to know how little boppers move too, so that you can jack stuff. That's why my daughter was able to rotate that well. So there's three areas where we break this down. The first thing that little boppers do is they really nail sequencing. So what sequencing is I like to tell people that it's like if you've ever been inner tubing behind a boat on a lake. This rope that's right here, you want to make sure that the rope is tight before you tell the boat to go. You don't ever want the rope to be loose. It hurts because the boat goes and it jerks you. But what you want to have happen is when the boat goes, it pulls the inner tube with it. So the second the motor goes, it's pulling the inner tube with it. And the only way that can happen is if you've taken the slack out of the rope. And the body has ropes. They're not called ropes, but we'll get into those, what they are in a second, but you have to take the slack out. So the body has these ropes that run all throughout the body, and they have to fire in certain orders. So the first thing that we need to have fire is the hips. And a lot of people fire their bodies in the wrong order. And so what you see here is Freddie Freeman's hips are opening. And if there was a rope attached, or a rubber band, let's call it, from his right front hip to his rib cage, you see him stretching it. He's taking the slack out of the ropes that run through from his hips to his torso. And what these actually are called fascial lines. So fascia is a tissue. It's like a rubber bandy type of tissue that runs through the body that if you quickly stretch it before you flex it, allows you to get way more explosiveness out of your body than you otherwise would be capable of doing. And so that's what Freddie Freeman is doing here. He's stretching that fascial line and taking the slack out of his system in the torso part of his body. Now, there's 4 sequences to the body. You got to fire the hips, then the shoulders, then the arm, then the wrist. And if any of those ever fire out of order, for example, my daughter would always fire her wrists first and then fire everything else, and it was robbing power. So we have to put them in drills and teach them how to fire their body in the correct order. And there's things that get in the way of them doing that. We're going to be going into why that is in this video, but that's the first thing, okay? Then that's the firing, right? You got to fire, but then what we got to do is you got to get really good at stopping each of these segments. So yes, you got to fire your hips, and you got to fire your shoulders, and you got to fire your arms, but then how quickly can they stop sends the energy on to the next segment. So I like this graphic to represent this, but if you actually watch elite hitters, their hips will start to fire, and then they'll recoil. They actually are really elite at stopping each of these segments of their body. So you have to learn how to fire them, and you got to learn how to stop them. And there's specific ways that you want to train that if you want to generate maximum amount of power. So that's the first thing, is we got to get the sequencing right and know how to train that. The second thing that is super important is we want to teach them how to do this with constraint-based drills. Hitting is a activity that does not do well if there's a lot of hits. A lot of thoughts going on in their head. And so this is easier to train with boys than it is to girls, because girls listen and they want to obey everything. But the problem is then they have 37 thoughts going on in their head, and they get a little bit domed up when they're at the plate. Now they're actually trying, where the boys will just tune you out and not do anything. So they both got their issues. But you want to train thoughtless hitting. And that really helps. So we do this with constraint-based drills. So constraint-based drills are drills that force the athlete to do a movement pattern we want them to do without them thinking about it. And when you have one of these for each of the parts of the training of the sequence of the swing, you can really help your athlete out a lot. So here's one that we use for teaching this part where the upper body, here if I go back, where the upper body is going back like Freddie Freeman while the hips are opening. So the hands are going up and back while hips are going forward and opening. And so the drill that we use for teaching an athlete how to do this is this one called Big Poppy. And you'll notice that she twists forward and back. It's why would you do that? That's weird. We would never do that. Well, what happens when you set the athlete up in this position, they can't hit from there. No one can hit from there. They know they have to pull their hands back while they're striding forward, and you start to be able to train the body. Oh, I got to go in opposite directions. I got to stretch this part of my rubber band of those in my body, take that part of the slack out to do this. And so we use different constraint-based drills for each of the steps of the swing to do this, okay? And then third thing, you might be noticing, I have an iPad here. We use instant feedback, so it's super critical. So when we're training this, the iPad is using it's talking to a sensor. The sensor's on the knob of the bat. We really like the blast motion bat sensors, but most people don't know how to use them. So depending on what segment of the body we're working on trying to fix, you got to track a different metric that the bat sensors will show you how to do. And so they're very, very helpful. And what happens when you're doing a drill and you do the drill better, one of the metrics on the sensor will get better if you do the drill better, or it'll get worse if you don't. And so you give an athlete instant feedback into what's going on. And then what happens, this is my daughter number 4, or kid number 4, daughter number 3. This is her doing that same drill. And so you can hook the sensors up to an iPad, an iPhone. I have mine on an iPhone here, and we are measuring how quickly she's doing the same drill her older sister is doing. She's less athletic than that sister. She doesn't move her hips well independently of her upper body, and so she struggles with this drill. And so she'd never generated over a 2, and so she was doing that same drill. She generates over a 2. The sensor tells her, and you can see the joy on her face. So what happens when you use instant feedback versus dad saying, you didn't do it right, mom saying, be better, you let the unbiased tool give the feedback, and it's just objective feedback. It doesn't come with any criticism. And so kids want to train more. They're more motivated when they break records. And when you set up the training environment so that everything's about breaking records, you like turn it into a video game. And so it's really cool, and you can see the joy on her face. And so when you combine these things, you know what sequencing needs to happen. And so one of the things we do for people is we have you send us in footage, and we will break down the sequencing of your athlete's swing, and we will design constraint-based drills, and show you how to set up the training environments, show you all the numbers we need to track, so that you could set up that environment for yourself. So that's like the first piece that we got to get. But there's some things that get in our way, right? Like I've got habits and I'm struggling to change them. So how do we actually go about changing those habits? Well, I like to kind of lay out this concept for you that your body needs to learn how to move in powerful patterns. Okay, so one second, a little cough. Okay, so power patterns. Now, there are 7 different movement patterns, and I'm not just making these up. If you go Google, I won't do it here in this video, but how young is too young to start training? There's an article on PubMed about teaching kids weightlifting stuff. Really fantastic article, but it outlines 7 movements. And the 7 movements, acceleration, deceleration, reacceleration, like that's a category of movement. Upper body pulling, vertical and horizontal. We have, concentric types of force, eccentric types of force in the lower body, while on one leg, which is what unilateral means. And there's 7 of these different things. And the article actually leaves out 8 because it doesn't talk about rotation. Throwing. It does talk about rotation, but it leaves out the throwing one for throwing athletes. So there's actually 8. But what happens is, actually, let me break this down. Let's take one of these movements. So the ability to brace the core is one of these in these 7 movement categories. And so here's an athlete, when he's really engaging his upper body, he loses the ability to brace his core. It's going to come in importantly in the swing. You can see that he's got a saggy back right here. And so what happens is a hitter will build swing patterns that try to make up for the lack of stability that they have or the lack of strength in their body. So if you've got one of these movement patterns that's wonky, you'll build a swing that's wonky. And so here's an athlete who does not have the ability to brace her core, and she's doing a arch her back. Her body's like, I need stability. My core doesn't have it. So I'm going to arch my back and create a weird kind of stability so that then I'll swing. And so you see that she arches up right here. Right before she swings, and this is a habit that's not going to work for her well. It's going to cause a lot of hitting issues. And we can bang on the drum of stop arching and do all this stuff, and it won't get fixed unless we fix the core movement issue. And so this is a piece that most hitting trainers leave out. You go to 100 lessons and your kid's like, not really getting it, or it gets it really slowly. This is like usually the underlying issue. So if you want to train your athlete to be a whole lot better, a whole lot faster, you got to figure out if they can do all these movements, which is why we do a movement screen when you send us in footage. You do a movement screen for all these movements to make sure that you can do them. Most kids can't. Some kids can. And you go in and we target these. So it becomes a part of how you do everything. The younger kids, we target them with more fun games. The older kids are a little bit more like gym style-ish movements, but that's what we do. Okay. Now, the super important here. And I get some shit for saying this, but this is, you have a limited window of opportunity to teach your kid these movements, or they close forever. It's like learning a language. And I shouldn't say forever, but I kind of should. So as an example, if you're a Chinese person, and I could use this for any ethnicity. I could use it for myself as well. But if you're a foreigner and you're trying to learn English, if you're like 3 to 5 years old, like that's not a problem. You learn it really quick. You pick it up. You grow up. You almost have no accent. You speak it really well. We can't tell that you were not born here. If you wait till you're like 13, then like we got some accent, but you're pretty fluent. You can understand. But there's a heavy accent. And then if you wait till you're like 40, you can still learn it. It takes way longer, and like you might not be able to ever pronounce your R's. Same thing with me. Like I can't, if I'm trying to learn Spanish, I can't roll my R's. There's just things that you can't do. Windows close. And so with these 7 movement patterns, this comes from that same article I was referencing earlier. I'll put a link to it. Depending on what platform you're watching this video on, underneath this video, around this video, on the page. I don't know where I'm going to put this video, but I'll link to that for you to check out. But the blue line represents the neuromuscular strength potential that happens to a kid if they learn these movement patterns before puberty. The red represents what happens if you wait until puberty starts or during adolescence. And the green one is the one that everybody talks about. Oh, you got to play multiple sports. And I'm not against playing multiple sports at all. But I just don't think if you're going to do it, you should do it from the perspective of athleticism. You should maybe do it from avoiding burnout, or you should do it from lots of finding what your kid's actually interested in. You should do it for a lot of reasons, but you shouldn't do it for athleticism because it's not the best way. Is it better than absolutely doing nothing, which is the dotted line? Yes, it is, but it's like not the best way. So anyways, this is one of the key things. We got to learn these movements, and we got to learn them before puberty hits. It's super, super important. Okay, so those are the 7 movements. And then part of the 7 movements is we need to take a joint by joint approach. So this was something I picked up. I went to an ABCA, American Baseball Coaches Association conference, and this guy hops on stage, Dr. Greg Rose, really smart guy from the golf industry about rotational athlete stuff. And he does this thing. He says, all right, I want all of you guys who played college baseball, raise your hand. And so the audience is full of these guys. They raise their hand. He pulls up a bunch of people and he goes, I'm going to tell you which ones of you were pitchers and which ones were position players. And so he pulls them up on stage and he has them do this test. And so on the right, this is my son and this is me. You can see that my son can reach way further back than I can. And so what this is doing is this is testing the T-spine's mobility. So what happens is the further you can rotate your spine and curve it backwards like this, the more you can lay your arm back and the whippier it is. So I have bad T-spine mobility. My son has pretty good T-spine mobility. And it turns out he went up on stage and he's like, oh, you were a pitcher in college and you were and you were and you weren't. And you can instantly see all the position players can only be like me on the right, and all the pitchers could go way further. It was just there's a mobility to parts of their body that other players didn't have. And what he went on to say is this exists for all of the joints. And so what happens is he has this joint by joint approach, and some joints are all about stability and some joints are all about mobility. So that T-spine was all about the mobility, but the foot and the ankle, that's about stability. I mentioned the core. And so different joints need to be stable and different joints need to be mobile, and you need to know what they are, right? So if we're talking about core, one of the exercises we give people to help them stabilize their core is, I call it the hip flopper test / exercise. So what you have on the left is you have an athlete who's trying to keep her arms straight. She's looking straight down. She's trying to roll the hips up on the ball and then roll them back the other way. And so when we have kids that can't fire their hips first, it's oftentimes there's several different reasons, but the core not being stable is one of them. And so we need to do the drill so that she can do this. She didn't used to be able to do that, and then she built the ability. You can see the athlete on the right does not have the ability to control the core enough to be able to get on the ball. She just flops. Her head's moving. She's all over the place. So you got to take this into account. If your kid's swing is wrong and they don't know the 7 move patterns and they aren't stable and they aren't mobile, you're barking up the wrong tree for how you're going to fix this stuff. And then once you know how to you've created a plan to stabilize some joints and help others be more mobile by making sure you know if you're doing those well enough, you need to be able to flow through the different movements efficiently. So what we do in our days is we have flow days, and I'll show you where we fit those in a couple of other things. But for example, with throwing, actually, before I play this, the bottom one, this is my daughter, same athlete, but we're in a flow day, which is like a low intent day. The kids actually like these. And the top one is a practice that we just happened to be filming. Like, we didn't do this intentionally. She gets a diver, so it's the same kind of position, but watch how these movements translated, the ones that we practiced, up to the top. Watch how it looks very similar. So that same act of getting up, driving the back leg up, it's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of similarities, right? So we will pick different, sorry about that, I had a little coughing fit. We will put kids in these positions where they are forced to move their bodies on different planes and start from different positions so that they look like, like the Latin infielders do, where they're just like super athletic. They can do everything from crazy positions. They can jump, they can throw, and they can just do all this different stuff from different positions, and that really helps build the athleticism if the kid has the stability and the mobility and they know how to do all this stuff. Okay, so anyways, that's like what a flow day does. So those are the 3 ways that we build the powerful patterns that attack all the sequencing stuff. Okay, and then we get to the part where, okay, awesome, but my kid just isn't very athletic. They're Clydesdale, they're not a racehorse. So how do you go about actually building quick twitch? This part is not the part where you'll have a closed window of opportunity. So this is the one that I discovered. I am a former Division I player myself, a bad former Division I player. I didn't hardly play, but I did make the team at University of California, Irvine. And it was all because I paid attention to this last one. I didn't understand the right powerful patterns, specifically in my throwing. I could never throw hard enough. I waited too long to learn this stuff, and that's why I'm passionate about it, because I'm like, well, I want my kids to throw hard. So I was like, I'm gonna teach them the right movements, teach them the right way to do it, because my father never taught me, and we've been able to do it, and so it's pretty cool. But anyways, I did get this quick twitch part right in my own career, and that's the only reason I played. Otherwise, I don't think I would have played. Was a very good junior college player, good enough to make a Division I team. But anyways, here's how quick twitch training works. Okay, so 3 keys to this too. The first is using overload, underload implements. So the really cool thing about our bodies is that our bodies, and a lot of people don't know this, have a certain percentage of slow twitch muscle fibers and fast twitch muscle fibers. And they might have known that. Like, so if you've got a big, strong, athletic kid, they're like, if they ever got a hold of it, they'd be good. But like, they don't usually get a hold of it. You can convert a certain percentage of your slow twitch to fast twitch, or you can go the other way too. You can convert your fast twitch to slow twitch. Fast twitch is good for like explosive stuff, and slow twitch is good for like endurance stuff. So quick little tip, don't do cross country if you're a baseball or softball player. It's just going to train, you'd be slower. It's training endurance. You're literally converting the muscle types to the types that are not helpful for baseball. So what we have here is we actually have like an example of a study where they did this. So on the top, the blue is a slow twitch muscle fiber, and the green is a fast twitch one. And this was taken this was taken before they started doing training to tackle this stuff, like overload, underload training. And you can see that the muscles convert. And by the end, we go from like a 50-50 slow twitch, fast twitch to like only a third are slow twitch at the end. You can't convert all of them, but a certain percentage are convertible, and you will see huge gains in explosiveness, where you're literally just converting muscle types. And this happens over a 6 to 12 week process. So you convert the muscle types, and then if you want to even go to another level, you got to like lift to gain more strength and then convert them again. And so when you repeat this over and over and over again, you could see huge gains with your athletes training the quick twitch. Okay, so they've done tons of studies of this. This is one, I won't go into all the details, but these guys saw an 8% increase, a 6%, a 10%, an 8.2% increase using overload, underload training. So this is done at the college level, and I don't know if there's any studies for the youth, but I took this and was like, well, I want to see if this works for the youth. And like all of the results that we've got, all of my athletes, like that's why we get the results. We train them to be fast, and we train this for all the areas of the body that need to be fast for baseball players. So that's the first thing. Like, we need to do that so they get faster. We need to convert the slow twitch muscles to fast. The next thing we need to do is we need to train the stretch shortening cycles of the swing. Remember I was showing you Freddie Freeman earlier where his hips and shoulders were stretching? We can and the fascia is involved right there. Well, you can train fascia. So one part of swinging fast is just you got to move right so the slack comes out of the system. But then the other part is like, well, can we just specifically target the fascia in that part of the movement to fire faster? And the answer is yes. And so you can do that with things like plyometric training. So this is like a super, this guy's a really advanced level of drop jump. So you step off of something, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to start jumping before you actually hit the ground. And so this is actually targeting the Achilles tendon and the calf muscles and the soleus, all the stuff in the ankle, and it's targeting some other things too, but that's where most of the force is being applied. Quick side note, don't do this. You will blow out your Achilles tendon, 100%. This guy's like super advanced. You start slow and you can build up, and what a lot of people don't know is you can improve the stiffness of your tendons. You can improve the reactivity of your fascia, and you can build up your body's system to be able to handle more and more intense forces. And so when you do this for each of the different sequences of this swing and the fascia that's involved and the muscles and tendons, and you specifically put your body into plyometric exercises that target all the areas of the swing, you can train it to go faster. So because you're training the fascia and the tendons. So we can absolutely do this, and we do that for every part of the training. And then the last part is just, it's basically a concept, but we want to train the central nervous system. So what I learned this mostly from sprinters. It's a simple concept, but you have to touch top speeds twice a week. And so what they notice, Lance Spellman is a guy that really does a lot of advanced speed work, trains the NFL combine guys to get ridiculous 40 times. What they do is they put sensors, GPS trackers on like players, so like lacrosse or soccer players. And what they noticed is that those players, like they'll track them throughout all the training. And if they're touching their top speeds twice a week, whether in training or in a game, they end up getting faster. If they don't, then they don't get faster. And so this is done at a twice a week clip. So that's like the key principle to pay attention to is like you got to engineer your days so that you're touching top speeds twice a week if you want to get faster. And once a week is needed to just maintain. So that's like the other concept here. So if you're in season and you don't want to like lose the gains from your off season, you got to at least structure a once a day per week. And this is happening. We do this for the running. We do this for the throwing. We do this for the for the swing. Touching top speeds in each of these three areas. And a lot of people like forget about the running, but it's the best part, the best way to train the central nervous system. If you can make an athlete run faster, then they will actually hit faster as well. Have you ever noticed how like the fastest runners on your team actually like they swing pretty quick as well? Like they're pretty good athletes, and that's because their nervous system fires faster. That's one of the reasons. And so my son, like I said, he's a little bit more of a Clydesdale. He's a catcher, so he doesn't need to be super fast, but he ran a year ago in January. I don't know when you're going to be watching this video, but I'm recording it in January. I'm recording it. Nope, it's in February now. Anyways, January, he was timed on a 60-yard dash, which is how they measure the speed of baseball players. And he ran a 7.89, which is slow. Not something like it's a red flag for any college coach who sees that. 6 months later, by touching top speeds and doing specific stuff that we do to help train the nervous system to fire faster, he dropped his 60 down to a 7.55. So over 0.3, 5, 6, 8, over 0.3 of a second we shaved off. And then just a couple weeks ago, he ran a 7.25 at a college thing. So so the 7.89 is slow. 7.2 is like, all right, you're like an average college catcher speed right now. So that's really huge. To go from bad to average at a high level is awesome. So, but it comes because we specifically are targeting twice a week to train the nervous system with his throwing, with his running, with his hitting, and we build these things in. And that's why, guys, all this stuff, that's why we can create hitters when we pay attention to all these things. You can see how it's pretty strategically thought out. That like my daughter's is her most recent home run, but it's now like, she's gonna hit this one. She misses this ball. It still leaves. And you can see like where her reaction. The first one I showed you was her first home run ever. This one's like, oh yeah, I've hit a bunch of these. I'm used to this. It's still super fun. They were blowing this team out like 20-0, but like this is just happens all the time now. And my son, This is, I showed you as a freshman, he hit a home run. Wasn't on, that was not done at the varsity level. That was done in the summer of his freshman year against some good pitching, but it wasn't varsity. This is his first varsity home run. And he actually hits this ball out to the opposite field. And so that's not something that most kids can do. Most, especially the sophomore, like he is right here. Most 16-year-olds just can't hit the ball out of the ballpark to the opposite field, and he can. But I'm telling you guys, like, it only happens because we pay attention to this stuff. So it's very strategic. We analyze the flaws of the body. We analyze stability and movement, and we take the whole thing into consideration to help build programs that help kids. So those are the 3 areas that we train. Hopefully that gives you like a better understanding of how that happens. And if that is something you would like us to help design for you, you would like us to analyze footage you send in, go through our movement screenings, figure out what areas your athlete needs to be worked in. We are launching a pilot program where we walk you through this program. It's called the Power Pillars program, and we can do this for you. So if that is something that you would like to learn more about, drop me a message, say I'm in, and I will send you some more information about that program, and we can have a conversation if that's the right fit for you or not over chat. So that's all I got for you today, guys. Hopefully this helps you understand what it takes to truly build elite level power in your hitters. And hopefully I will hear from some of you soon. And hopefully this is something that will help benefit you and help you take your hitters to another level. We'll talk soon, guys.